Today we reveal the raw edges of a suburban therapy confrontation. You'll see Daniel Reyes guide a daughter and father through unspoken pain. The object is one session, but beneath it lurks a forgotten betrayal that destroys. You will remember this. The camera lingers in the dim suburban living room, natural light filtering through half-drawn blinds like hesitant confessions. Daniel Reyes, the therapist, sits centered on a worn couch, his voice steady, a quiet anchor amid the fragility. "We're here for truth," he says, eyes scanning the trio. "No interruptions. Speak from the heart, even if it hurts. This is your space to rebuild or let go." Maya Ortega perches on the edge of an armchair across the coffee table, her posture rigid, arms crossed like a barrier. She hasn't looked at her father since arriving. Alejandro slumps opposite her, hands fidgeting with a crumpled tissue, his gaze pleading, but met only by the floor. Between them, Lucia hovers on a stool, twisting her fingers, her neutrality a thin veil over the storm brewing inside. The broken photograph frame sits on the side table, its cracked glass splintering the image of a happier family. Smiles from years ago, before the secrets shattered everything. No one's touched it yet. It just watches, a silent witness. Alejandro clears his throat, the sound slicing the air. "Maya, I know I..." But Daniel raises a hand gently. "One at a time. Let's start with why we're here." He turns to Maya first. She nods curtly, lips pressed thin, but her eyes flick to the frame for a split second. A crack in the armor, unnoticed by all but the camera's unblinking eye. Tension coils in the pauses, breaths held, the room thick with unspoken accusations. Yet as Daniel outlines the rules, honesty without blame, turns to listen, something shifts. Anticipation stirs, fragile as the wilted bouquet on the table. Lucia leans forward slightly, her mediator's role solidifying in the nod she gives her sister. Alejandro waits, vulnerability etching lines on his face. Maya's silence holds, but she listens now, the weight of it pressing against her chest. The air hums with possibility. Will she let even the first thread of truth unravel her guard? As the session deepens, the camera lingers on Maya's face, her eyes fixed on a crumpled sheet of paper clutched in her lap. Notes scribbled in hurried ink, a fragile anchor against the room's stifling air. The suburban living room, bathed in dim afternoon light, filtering through half-drawn blinds, feels like a confessional box. Alejandro sits across from her on the worn couch, his hands folded tightly, gaze pleading but unmet. Lucia hovers on the edge of her seat beside him, her fingers twisting a tissue, a silent plea for peace. Daniel Reyes, the therapist, leans forward in his armchair, his voice steady but probing, like a scalpel testing scarred tissue. "Maya," Daniel says softly, yet with an edge that cuts through the hush. "You've carried this for years. Tell us your truth. What did that betrayal feel like in the moment you discovered it?" Maya's jaw tightens. She doesn't glance up. Not at her father. Not at the man whose shadow has haunted her since she was 22. Her voice emerges low, measured, as if each word is a stone she's been hoarding. "It was the letters, hidden in his desk, the ones from her, the woman he swore didn't exist. Mom was dying, and he was building something else, a secret life, while we pretended everything was fine." She smoothed the paper absent-mindedly, her thumb tracing a faded line, the ink blurring slightly under the pressure. The room holds its breath. No interruptions, as per the rules, but the silence screams. Daniel nods, his eyes never leaving her. "And the trust? When it shattered. Walk us through that loss. What did it steal from you?" Her breath hitches, a faint tremor in her shoulders. Tension coils in her posture, rigid as the family artifacts on the mantel. A broken photo frame, its glass spider-webbed but unrepaired. Trust. It was everything. I looked at him and saw a stranger. How do you rebuild when the foundation was lies? I stopped calling, stopped visiting, because every word felt like another deception waiting. Her voice cracks on the last syllable, not with fury, but a raw ache that seeps through. For the first time, her eyes flicker, not to Alejandro, but toward the paper, as if the words there hold her unraveling together. Alejandro shifts, his face paling, stunned into stillness, the weight of her pain etching deeper lines around his eyes. Lucia reaches out instinctively, her hand brushing Maya's knee. Sis, it's okay to... But she stops, honoring the turn, her own eyes glistening with the strain of neutrality. Daniel presses gently. Does voicing this now change anything? Or does the silence still feel safer? Maya pauses, the paper crinkling in her grip. A symbol of truths committed to record, demanding to be heard. The tension lingers, thick as unspoken accusations. But something shifts in her exhale, a subtle softening at the edges of her resolve. Pain spills out, unbidden, and in that vulnerability, the balance teeters. Will these words bridge the chasm, or merely widen the echo of silence? With the revelations unfolding further, the camera lingers on the coffee table, where a bouquet of wilting lilies droops in a chipped vase, petals curling like unspoken regrets. Dim afternoon light filters through lace curtains, casting shadows across the faces. In the living room, turned confessional. Daniel Reyes, the therapist, sits forward in his armchair, his voice steady but insistent. Lucia, the documents are here. The hidden accounts, the loans your father took without telling anyone. Those statements, thousands funneled away while we scraped by. How do I even start with that? Her voice wavers, anger fracturing into a plea, the first crack in her armored silence. She adds details unbidden, the forged signatures, the late-night calls she'd overheard but dismissed. It's as if speaking them anchors her, keeps her from unraveling entirely. Alejandro shifts, his face crumpling, not in defense, but defeat. He nods slowly, absorbing Lucia's confession, the reason for her divided loyalties finally voiced. Daniel interjects gently. Note the timeline here. The lies started in 18, right after the diagnosis. Facts first, then feelings. But the room pulses with emotion, tension easing into a precarious shift, like ice thawing under pressure. Lucia reaches out, hesitating before touching Maya's knee. I thought silence would hold us together. The distance between sisters softens, just a fraction, in that touch. Outside, wind rustles the curtains, and the bouquet seems to stir faintly, as if empathy might yet revive it. Can peace endure when truth slices so deep? The question hangs, unanswered, in the heavy pause. Turning now to the heart of the betrayal, the camera lingers on the coffee table, dim afternoon light filtering through half-drawn blinds, casting shadows over the wilted bouquet and a shattered photograph frame. Its glass cracked like veins across a faded family portrait, edges jagged where someone had slammed it down years ago. Alejandro sits rigid in the armchair, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles blanch. Across from him, Maya perches on the couch's edge, arms crossed, her dark eyes locked on the floor, a wall of silence thicker than the suburban quiet outside. Daniel, the therapist, nods gently from his stool, his voice steady as a metronome. Alejandro, the hidden accounts, the ones that drained the family savings for your brother's debts, speak to it now. No filters. Alejandro's throat bobs. He leans forward, voice cracking like dry earth underfoot, trembling with the weight of unshed tears. I moved the money in secret 6 years back. Started with the joint account, then the emergency fund. It was to keep your uncle from losing everything, his home, his life. I thought I could fix it quietly, replace it before anyone knew. But it spiraled. I lied about the investments, the bad market. It wasn't protection. It was fear. My fear. His words hang, raw and unadorned. No plea for understanding, just the stark naming of facts. Regret etches his face, lines deepening around his mouth. But he doesn't reach for excuses, doesn't say it was for the family. Maya's jaw tightens, her breath shallow, the tension coiling in the room like smoke. She wants to bolt, to hurl the words back. Liar, thief of our security. But his voice, that quiver, pierces her armor. It's not the polished denial she's braced for. It's a man unraveling, owning the fracture. Her gaze flicks to the broken frame, the splintered image of them all, smiling whole, mocking her from the table. The resentment in her chest cracks, a hairline fault, urging her to listen, to let the truth land without shattering her further. Lucia, wedged between them on the couch, shifts, her hand brushing Maya's knee, a tentative bridge. She sees it too. The honesty stripped bare, no justifications to dodge the blade. "Papa," she whispers, voice soft but steady. "You're not hiding anymore." Alejandro glances at her, eyes glistening, catching that flicker of support, the first thaw in the ice. Daniel jots a note, his pen scratching the silence. "Maya, the facts are out. What stirs now?" She doesn't answer, not yet. The air thickens with the unspoken. Can this confession, truth without armor, pierce her walls, show her that admission isn't absolution, but a door cracked open? The frame sits there, unbroken in its ruin, waiting. As emotions surface more deeply, the camera lingers on Lucia's face. Soft afternoon light filtering through the suburban living room curtains, casting long shadows across the coffee table. The bouquet there, once vibrant roses from a forgotten anniversary, sits in a shallow vase, petals curling at the edges, thirsty for care. Lucia sits cross-legged on the worn sofa, her hands twisting in her lap, voice steady at first, like a quiet stream. I love you both so much," she begins, eyes flicking between Maya, rigid in the armchair across from her, and their father, Alejandro, hunched on the edge of his seat. Daniel, the therapist, nods from his spot by the window, notebook open, but pen still. "Maya, you're my anchor, the one who's always pulled me through the storms. And Dad, you've been our rock, even when things cracked underneath." Her words hang calm, measured, threading the air without blame. Maya's gaze stays fixed on the floor, arms crossed tight. But she doesn't interrupt. Silence her shield, yet listening, the therapist had noted earlier. Lucia presses on, building the bridge with care. This split inside me. It's like I'm being torn in two. Every time I hug you, Maya, I feel your hurt radiating, and it mirrors my own. The lies, the secrets that hid for so long. And with Dad, I see the regret in his eyes, the way he flinches when we talk. I want to scream at him sometimes, for what he did, for how it shattered us. But I can't choose sides without losing part of myself. Tension creeps in, her voice tightening, breath shallower. She leans forward, glancing at the bouquet as a petal loosens and drifts to the table, unnoticed by the others. I want peace, not the fake kind, where we pretend the pain didn't happen, real peace, where we can sit like this without the air feeling so heavy. But how? If I reach for you, Maya, does it push Dad further away? If I hold space for him, do I betray you? Her eyes well up, not spilling over, but the calm facade cracks, voice rising just a notch, raw edges showing. I've buried my own ache to keep the peace, but that's not fair to any of us. It just lets the hurt fester, like these flowers wilting here, waiting for someone to pour back in. Alejandro shifts, mouth opening, but Daniel raises a gentle hand. Rules of the session, turns unbroken. Maya's jaw clenches, a flicker in her eyes, but she holds silent, the distance softening ever so slightly under Lucia's honest pull. I need time, Lucia adds, voice now edged with urgency. For all of us to name this without it exploding. Can we try that? Before the tear widens too far? The room holds its breath. The fallen petal, a quiet testament. Daniel jots a note. Request for time acknowledged. Bridge forming amid acknowledged pain. The question lingers unspoken, heavy. Can peace bloom without first watering the wounds? In the wake of Lucia's plea, the camera lingers on the coffee table, where the bouquet of wilting roses droops under the weight of unspoken days. Petals curling like clenched fists. Maya shifts in her chair, the dim light casting shadows across her face, her hands twisting in her lap. The room feels smaller now, the air thick with the residue of confessions, Alejandro's halting admissions, Lucia's quiet bridges. Daniel, the therapist, nods subtly, his voice a steady anchor. Maya, the floor is yours. No rush. She inhales sharply, resentment boiling up like steam from a cracked pot. I can't just forget, she says, her voice raw, edged with the old hurt that has armored her for years. You lied, Dad, about the money, the affairs, everything that made us feel like a lie. And now you want forgiveness like it's a switch I flip? Her eyes flick to Alejandro, who sits rigid, hands open on his knees. But she doesn't wait for his defense. The words spill, fueled by the fear that this vulnerability will be swallowed whole, ignored like before. My anger isn't some tantrum, it's real. It protected me when the truth shattered us. Lucia leans forward, her gaze soft but unwavering, a lifeline across the divide. I'm here, Maya. I see it. We've all carried this. Her words wrap around the tension, not erasing it, but holding space, strengthening the thread between sisters. Daniel pauses the moment, his pen hovering over his notebook. A brief, deliberate silence, marked only by the faint rustle of drying leaves in the bouquet. That's the boundary you're naming, he says gently. Anger as your truth. What does it need now? Maya's breath catches, the resentment fracturing just enough for acknowledgement to seep in. She glances at the flowers again, their faded reds mirroring the ache in her chest. But now she imagines watering them, coaxing life back. Time, she admits, the word a release. I need time to feel this without it being dismissed. Boundaries, not walls, but real ones, so we don't repeat the cycle. Alejandro nods, leaning back, giving the space she demands, his eyes glistening with the weight of accountability. The question hangs unspoken in the fragile quiet that follows. Can this fury endure, raw and unyielding, without splintering the dialogue into shards? Lucia reaches out, her hand brushing Maya's arm. We'll wait. Together. The camera pulls back slowly, the bouquet unchanged yet, but the air stirs with possibility. As the dialogue turns inward, the camera lingers on Daniel's steady gaze, the room's dim light casting long shadows across the coffee table, where the wilted bouquet droops like unspoken regrets. He leans forward slightly, his voice a quiet anchor amid the thickening air. We've talked about the betrayal, the pain it carved. But let's turn to what we've all chosen not to say. Silence isn't neutral. It's a thread that weaves the scar deeper. Alejandro, what has your quiet cost this family? Not in defense, just in reflection. Alejandro's hands clasp in his lap, knuckles whitening. His eyes drop to the floor, tracing the grain of the wood as if it holds the words he owes. The weight presses in. Years of withheld truths about the financial ruin, the hidden illness, now echoing in the hush. He exhales, slow and ragged. My silence. It let the lie grow roots. I thought protecting you meant shielding the mess, but it only buried us alive. I've carried that alone, and it pulled everyone under with me. No excuses, just the raw admission hanging there, his shoulders slumping under the burden he finally names. Tension coils tighter as the lens shifts to Lucia, her fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve. She glances between her father and sister, the mediator's role etching lines of strain on her face. I've stayed quiet to keep the peace, she murmurs, voice threading through the pause. But it meant swallowing my own hurt, pretending it didn't fracture me too. By not speaking, I let the gap widen. For Maya, for all of us. Her words bridge the space, not accusing, but illuminating the shared shadow. Maya sits rigid, arms crossed like a barrier, her breath shallow against the rising knot in her chest. The interview's rhythm pulses in her mind, each revelation a crack in her armor. Daniel's question turns inward now. Maya, how has your silence shaped this wound? She hesitates, the air electric with what she holds back. Thoughts whirl, anger as shield, words as weapons she fears wielding. But in the stillness, a shift stirs. Her voice isn't just echo. It's the force that could redirect the current. I've been silent to protect myself, she says finally, her tone edged but steady, locking the door on more pain. But it keeps us all trapped, doesn't it? My boundaries stay. I won't rush forgiveness, but speaking them, it changes something. The realization dawns in her eyes, a quiet power blooming amid the strain. Daniel nods, reaching for the shared journal on the table. Its leather cover worn, pages half filled with tentative entries from earlier sessions. He slides it toward the center, an unspoken invitation. This isn't about filling it now. It's a reminder. What we don't voice festers. How does each silence strengthen the discord? The question lingers, unanswered yet insistent, as the camera pulls back on their faces, tension easing into the first fragile threads of accountability. The journal, a silent witness to the turn. Building on this reflection, the camera lingers on the coffee table, where the shared journal lies open like an unspoken invitation. Its blank pages, a fragile testament to words yet to be written. Dim afternoon light filters through the suburban curtains, casting long shadows across the room's family artifacts. A broken photograph frame mended with tape, a wilting bouquet drooping in its vase. Maya sits rigid on the edge of the couch, arms crossed, her dark eyes fixed on the floor, the weight of detachment a shield she's worn for years. Daniel, the therapist, leans forward in his chair, his voice steady but probing, like a gentle incision. Alejandro, you've shared the betrayal, the financial secrets, the lies about your health that rippled through this family. But compassion isn't absolution. Maya, what does it stir in you to see your father's tears now, after all this silence? Alejandro's shoulders tremble, his face crumpling as a tear traces the deep lines of regret. He doesn't speak. The vulnerability hangs raw, exposed under the handheld camera's unblinking gaze. Maya's gaze lifts slowly, drawn against her will to those glistening tracks on his cheek. Her heart clenches. Not with forgiveness, but with the unwelcome tug of recognition. This man, who shattered their trust, is human, frail, his pain echoing her own buried ache. She uncrosses her arms, fingers twitching as if to reach, then stilling. The detachment cracks, just a fracture. Empathy seeping in like light through a blind's gap. "I see it," Maya says finally, her voice low but firm, breaking the room's taut hush. No more silence. She won't let it fester like before. "The hurt in your eyes, Dad. It's real. But seeing it doesn't erase what you did. Hiding the truth, letting us think we were safe while everything crumbled." Her words slice the air, protective boundaries intact, yet laced with a softening edge. An acknowledgement that his brokenness doesn't demand her erasure of the wound. Lucia shifts beside her, eyes darting between them, her hand hovering near Maya's knee in quiet solidarity. "It's okay to feel that pull, Maya," she murmurs, her tone a bridge, urging without pushing. Alejandro nods faintly, his gaze meeting Maya's for the first time without evasion. Hearing in her admission that his unraveling touches her, stirs something beyond rage. Daniel nods, glancing at the journal. And if words like these fill these pages, not to forgive blindly, but to honor the pain on both sides? Maya doesn't answer, but her fingers brush the journal's cover, tracing its leather edge. The question lingers unspoken. How can she cradle his sorrow without letting go of the betrayal that scarred them all? The room exhales, tension easing into fragile possibility, the camera pulling back as tears dry and the first page waits. With empathy stirring, the camera lingers on the coffee table, where sunlight filters through half-drawn blinds, casting long shadows over the scattered family photos and the wilted bouquet. Maya sits rigid on the edge of the couch, arms crossed like a barrier, her eyes fixed on the blank journal in the center. Alejandro, across from her, fidgets with his hands, knuckles white against the armrest. Lucia hovers between them on a stool, her posture a careful neutral, while Daniel, the therapist, nods gently from his chair, his voice a steady anchor in the thickening air. "We can't build on silence," Daniel says, his tone even, not probing, or on blame. "Let's name what we need now. Boundaries that honor the hurt without closing the door." Alejandro clears his throat first, the sound jagged in the quiet room. Tension coils in Maya's jaw as he speaks. "I agree to full transparency. No more secrets about finances, health, nothing. I'll check in weekly, but only if it's wanted. And I'll own my choices every day, without excuses." His voice cracks, eyes darting to Maya, but he doesn't push. It's a choice, raw and offered. Lucia nods, her fingers twisting a napkin. "For me, it's consistency. No sides, but real talks. No pulling away when it gets hard. I'll listen to both of you, hold the space. But I need you to meet me there." She glances at Maya, a silent plea for balance, her neutrality a fragile tightrope. Maya's breath hitches. The room feels smaller, the air heavy with the weight of what could shatter again. She uncrosses her arms, leaning forward just enough to touch the journal's cover, leather worn from years of unspoken stories. Her fingers trace the edge, a hesitant choice blooming amid the strain. "I need space to process," she says, voice steady but laced with edge. "Respect my silence when I need it. No pressure to forgive or forget. But I'll try small steps. Share what's real, see if efforts match words. If not, I walk." Daniel slides a pen across the table. One by one, they lean in, the rustle of pages turning like a collective exhale. Alejandro writes his pledge first, the ink deliberate. Lucia follows, her script neat. Maya pauses, pen hovering, then adds her line. Silence respected, trust earned slowly. The journal closes with a soft thud, a symbol sealed, not mended, but marked. The tension eases, not gone, but shifting into something tentative, like dawn cracking the night. Eyes meet briefly. Alejandro's hopeful, Lucia's relieved, Maya's guarded yet softening. What conditions will truly hold the line between walls and windows? The question hangs, unanswered, as the light warms the page. Culminating the session, the camera lingers on the coffee table, its surface scarred by years of unspoken meals, now cradling the shared journal. Its leather cover worn, pages splayed like an open wound, finally ready to scar over. Dim afternoon light filters through the suburban curtains, casting long shadows that dance with the family's hesitation. Maya sits rigid, her fingers tracing the edge of the pen, eyes flicking to Alejandro across the circle. He meets her gaze, not with pleas, but with the quiet weight of a man who's learned to wait. Daniel, the therapist, nods gently, his voice a steady anchor. Speak your promises aloud. Let them land before they live on the page. This isn't erasure, its edges defined. Alejandro clears his throat, voice cracking like dry earth. I promise full truth. No more shadows. I'll own the betrayal, every layer, without demanding your words in return. He writes it down, the pen scratching deliberate, each stroke a choice to rebuild without grasping. Lucia's turn. She glances at Maya, her younger sister's face a map of guarded hope. I'll hold the space, Lucia says, soft but firm. No sides, just witness, and I'll remind us when the silence needs air. Her hand trembles as she signs, then rises to adjust the wilting bouquet on the table. Fresh stems she brought, petals unfurling like tentative breaths. She pours water from a pitcher, the liquid glugging softly, reviving the flowers as if empathy could be that simple. Maya's breath hitches. The room holds its collective pause, the air thick with the risk of retreat. Sign now, and her silence becomes sacred, not a weapon. Or pull back, let the void swallow them again. Her choice hangs, visible in the way her shoulders tense, then ease. My promise, she whispers, voice threading through the quiet, is to let trust grow slow. My boundaries stay, honor them, or this ends. She writes, the ink blooming black on white, acknowledging her quiet as part of the pact, not the prison. They sign in turn, Alejandro last, his flourish sealing the contract. The journal closes with a soft thud, a symbol forged in vulnerability, transparency bound, ready to carry their fragile accord. Lucia places the bouquet center, stems steady now. A tremor pulls at Maya's lips, mirrored in Alejandro's eyes. First smiles, shaky as new leaves. The camera pulls back slowly, capturing the circle. Distance honored, yet bridged by written words. Can these promises cradle her edges without cracking them? The question lingers, unanswered, in the fading light.